Melissa Hamilton was reviewing a new client proposal in her design office, Harmony Interiors, located along Chicago's Magnificent Mile. The soft May sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow across her sophisticated white-themed office. She gently brushed aside her brown hair, inherited from her father, as she gave instructions to her staff. "Jane, we can start this project next week. The budget is sufficient, so reach out to that Italian furniture manufacturer." After 10 years of experience, her firm had earned a solid reputation among Chicago's wealthy elite and celebrities. All 5 staff members trusted Melissa's creative vision and proven expertise. While Melissa maintained her cool, professional demeanor at the office, she became noticeably quieter at home. She lived with her mother Carol and sister Ashley in a large house in suburban Winnetka, purchased with her father's inheritance. Legally, the house was in Melissa's name. "Melissa, Ashley's college tuition payment is due next week." That was what her mother had said when she entered Melissa's study 3 years ago. It was for Ashley's 3rd attempt at college. In the end, Ashley dropped out after 6 months, and Melissa had to shoulder that debt too. Carol had previously worked as a high school administrative assistant before taking early retirement. With her slim figure and perfectly styled blonde bob, she looked like she'd stepped straight out of a magazine. She never missed her Botox injections to maintain her youthful appearance. "It's because of my dedicated parenting that you are who you are today." That was her mother's standard response, especially when Melissa shared news of her professional success. These comments had become more frequent since her father's sudden death from a heart attack. Ashley bore a striking resemblance to their mother but preferred flashier clothes and makeup. After bouncing between various colleges, she drifted from one short-term job to another. She frequently posted selfies on social media, focused on increasing her follower count. "Why bother with hard work? I've got natural charm," was her typical refrain. Their father, John, had been the family's peacekeeper when he was alive. With his gentle nature, he recognized and balanced each family member's qualities. However, after his death, the family's power dynamics shifted dramatically. Without realizing it, Melissa had become the family's financial backbone. The house mortgage, her mother and sister's living expenses, Ashley's recurring debts, Melissa had been paying for everything. Rather than receiving gratitude, Melissa's kindness came to be treated as a given. Her mother and Ashley had begun treating her like the family's personal ATM. Amidst all this, last week, Melissa's grandfather James passed away. He had been the only family member who truly recognized and deeply trusted Melissa's efforts. In his will, she was named the estate administrator. As her mother's birthday approached, Melissa saw it as an opportunity to mend their long-strained family relationships. She planned a special present, a luxury 2-week tour of Paris, Rome, and London. "Maybe this will help strengthen our family bonds," Melissa wished as she paid the hefty tour fee from her savings. On the last Saturday of May, the upscale Chicago restaurant, The Grand, was bathed in the warm glow of dusk. As guests pushed through the historic building's heavy doors, they were greeted by the soft light of chandeliers. After confirming her reservation at the front desk, Melissa was escorted to a private room on the 2nd floor. "Your mother's birthday cake is ready," the manager discreetly informed her. "Would you like us to serve the champagne at the start of the meal?" Melissa nodded, feeling her heart race with anticipation. A specially ordered bouquet adorned the table, and an elegant cake reading, "Happy 60th Birthday Carol," waited in the wings. As she smoothed her crimson dress, she found herself reviewing the evening's plans once again. Soon, Carol's close friends began arriving, all dressed in elegant attire that exuded sophistication. Finally, Carol and Ashley made their entrance. Her mother appeared with platinum blonde hair freshly styled at the salon, wearing a deep blue dress. Ashley wore a revealing black mini dress and couldn't stop taking selfies on her smartphone. "Happy birthday, Mom." Melissa embraced her mother. Though Carol said thank you, she was already absorbed in conversation with her friends. The dinner proceeded elegantly. The foie gras appetizer, Wagyu beef fillet main course, and seasonal truffle pasta were served as wine flowed and conversation flourished. Melissa occasionally glanced at her mother. Carol was radiant, surrounded by her friends and looking youthful as ever. Ashley seemed more focused on photographing the food than eating it. "This will definitely boost my follower count," she muttered while repeatedly adjusting the place settings for her photos. Before dessert was served, Melissa slowly stood up. All eyes turned to her. She took a deep breath and pulled out a large envelope decorated with a gold ribbon. "Mom, a special day deserves a special gift," Melissa smiled genuinely. In that moment, her eyes held a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this gift would be the turning point in their complicated mother-daughter relationship. Carol accepted the envelope with interest. Well, what could this be? She gracefully untied the ribbon and removed the contents. Out came luxurious brochures and first-class tickets. Paris, Rome, and London. A 2-week luxury tour? Carol's eyes widened. Exclamations of surprise rose from her friends. "You've always talked about wanting to go to Europe," Melissa smiled. "I thought we could spend some wonderful time together. Everything's first class. It'll be the perfect opportunity to strengthen our mother-daughter bond." Carol seemed momentarily speechless with emotion. However, there was a calculating shadow in her expression. She repeatedly examined the brochures, proudly showing them to her friends. "Oh, Melissa, what a wonderful present." Melissa didn't miss how Ashley's expression darkened. Her sister pressed her lips together, clearly displeased as she stared at the tickets. "That's wonderful, Mom," Ashley's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Have a great time with Big Sister." As the party drew to a close, Carol kissed Melissa's cheek while being seen off by her friends. "Thank you, darling. I'm really looking forward to it." Those words weren't entirely false. However, her mother's anticipation stemmed from entirely different reasons than Melissa had imagined. 3 weeks later, Chicago O'Hare International Airport was bustling with morning activity. Melissa had arrived 2 hours early and had already completed check-in procedures. "Hamilton, checking in for the Paris flight." "Yes, Ms. Hamilton." "For 2 passengers." Melissa sat on a lobby bench, waiting for her mother's arrival. While checking emails on her smartphone, she occasionally looked up, scanning the distance. 15 minutes past the meeting time, there was still no sign of her mother. "She's late," Melissa murmured softly and called her mother. "I'll be there soon, Melissa." "Just looking for parking," Carol's voice came through. There was an unusual excitement in her tone. 10 minutes later, Melissa spotted Carol in the distance. She started to wave but froze in place. Beside her mother was Ashley, wearing designer sunglasses and pulling a new branded suitcase. The two were approaching, laughing, and chatting together. Melissa stood up in confusion. "Mom? Ashley? What's going on?" Carol smiled as if everything were perfectly normal. "Oh, Melissa. I decided to bring Ashley along. She needed a vacation too. But these tickets are only for 2 people. This was supposed to be our trip, Mom and me." Melissa's voice trembled with confusion and surprise. Carol waved her hand dismissively, speaking as if it were a trivial matter. "That's not your concern. I'm giving your ticket to Ashley. You've done your part by paying for it. Actually, I'd rather travel with Ashley. You always talk about work anyway." Those words cut through Melissa's heart like a sharp blade. In the airport's bustle, she could only hear the sound of her own blood rushing. Years of patience and sacrifice felt trampled in an instant, leaving her chest tight with pain. Ashley patted Melissa's shoulder with a smirk. "Thanks for the amazing trip. I'll post the best photos on Instagram. My followers will love it." As Carol headed back to the ticket counter, she said, "You're rich anyway, so you can afford to give us this present." "Like always." Melissa couldn't find words to respond. Not wanting to cause a scene in public, she tried to maintain her composure with deep breaths. She desperately fought to contain emotions she had suppressed for over 30 years. "Fine," Melissa forced a smile. "Have a good time." After Carol and Ashley completed the name change procedures, they headed toward the security gate, excitedly chatting. Neither of them looked back or even said, "Goodbye," to Melissa. Melissa stood frozen in place. Just 30 minutes ago, she had been dreaming of 2 weeks bonding with her mother. Now, all that remained was a feeling of emptiness, as if everything had shattered. As she finally moved to leave the airport, her phone rang. The screen displayed Johnson Law Office. "This is Melissa Hamilton," she answered, consciously keeping her voice steady. "Ms. Hamilton, this is Marcus Johnson. We're ready to discuss the execution of your grandfather's will. Could you come to the office tomorrow?" "Yes, of course," Melissa replied. As she ended the call, Melissa's expression changed. The tears in her eyes dried, replaced by a look of determination. The next day, Melissa visited Johnson Law Office on the 14th floor of a high-rise in Chicago's Loop District. Stepping off the elevator, she entered a reception area behind heavy wooden doors, filled with wall-to-wall law books and dignified furniture. Large windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago's skyline. "We've been expecting you, Ms. Hamilton." Marcus Johnson stood up to shake Melissa's hand. The silver-haired gentleman in his mid-60s had a face deeply lined with years of experience. His navy suit was perfectly tailored, and his presence exuded trustworthiness. "Let's talk in this conference room." Marcus led Melissa to the adjacent room, carrying a thick file. The conference room's table was made of deep-colored wood, lending a solemn atmosphere to the space. "First, your grandfather named you as the estate administrator," Marcus began, opening the file. "This isn't just a formality, it comes with substantial authority." "Grandfather trusted me," Melissa said quietly. Her paternal grandfather James had always been on her side. He would give her handmade Christmas ornaments and write heartfelt letters of encouragement when she started college. Warm memories flooded back one after another. "He trusted you immensely," Marcus nodded. "Actually, there's a special clause in the will," he continued while turning pages. "If any family member intentionally damages family bonds, you have the authority to redistribute their inheritance." Melissa's eyes widened in surprise. "Redistribute? What does that mean?" "Simply put, if an heir acts in a way that disrupts family harmony, you have the discretion to reduce their inheritance or reallocate it to other heirs or charitable organizations." After explaining carefully, Marcus turned more pages. "Your grandfather's total estate is approximately $2 million, including real estate, investments, and cash." He adjusted his glasses and continued. "The current will allocates 40% to you, 40% to your mother, and 20% to Ashley." Melissa's chest tightened as she remembered yesterday's airport incident. The cruel words and attitudes of her mother and sister played like a movie in her mind. Years of patience and sacrifice suddenly took on new meaning. "May I have some time to consider this?" Melissa stood up. "Of course," Marcus also rose, adding, "However, I recommend making your decision before your mother and sister return from Europe. Legal procedures could become more complicated after their return." After leaving the office, Melissa drove straight home. Arriving at the large 2-story house in Winnetka's quiet residential area, she unlocked the front door and quietly entered. The house was eerily silent. Usually filled with the sounds of her mother cooking or her sister watching TV, it was now strangely quiet. She climbed the stairs and first entered Ashley's room. Looking around the room with its pink wallpaper and posters, she noticed a laptop on the desk. With some hesitation, she opened it and checked her sister's social media accounts. As expected, posts from Paris had already begun. There was a photo of raised champagne glasses, along with selfies with their mother. Both were beaming with bright smiles. Next, Melissa entered her mother's room. In the well-organized space, her attention was drawn to photo frames on the dresser. While one held a family photo of all four of them, another beside it contained only pictures of Carol and Ashley. Anger and sadness welled up in Melissa's chest. She headed to her father's study. Entering the unused room, she opened the desk drawer where her father's diary was kept. Opening the diary, she found an entry from a few months before his death. "I'm concerned that Carol and Ashley are taking advantage of Melissa. She's too kind to refuse, but this will only hurt her in the end. I must do something." Just then, Melissa's phone notification chimed. A text message from her mother. "The hotel Wi-Fi is terrible. Could we change to a better hotel? Send extra money." Melissa gripped her phone, strengthening her resolve. She quietly closed her father's diary and called her grandfather's lawyer. "Marcus, I've made my decision. Please start the inheritance redistribution procedures." Melissa's voice carried a strength she hadn't heard in herself for years. Melissa swiftly put her action plan into motion. First, she initiated legal procedures to donate half of Carol and Ashley's intended inheritance to the Hope Foundation, a local charity the family had long supported. This organization helped provide educational support for children in difficult circumstances, and her father had served on its board during his lifetime. "I believe this is what Father would have wanted," Melissa said quietly while signing documents at Marcus's office. The remaining half would be placed in an escrow account, to be disbursed as monthly living expenses in small amounts. This decision was meant not as an abandonment with, when it's gone, but as support until they achieve independence. Next, Melissa contacted real estate agent Jennifer Williams, a former design client. "There's a great property in Gold Coast," Jennifer promptly sent condominium information, 39th floor, Lake View. "Perfect for your taste." The top-floor property overlooking Lake Michigan, with its modern white-themed interior, was exactly what Melissa had been looking for. She decided to purchase it immediately. While the current house was in her name, she felt it would be painful to continue living alone in a home filled with family memories. Taking advantage of her mother and sister's 2-week absence, Melissa began moving her belongings to her new home. She started by carefully boxing up her father's photos and mementos from the study. Each photograph she touched brought back nostalgic memories. "Dad, I'm doing the right thing, aren't I?" Melissa asked this question while removing a photo of herself with her father from an old album. In the photo, her father smiled gently. Parallel to the moving process, Melissa planned major renovations for her mother and sister's rooms. Utilizing her expertise as an interior designer, she transformed the spaces into functional yet stark environments, removing personal photos and decorations while leaving only essential furniture. "If I'm just an ATM to you, then this house might as well be a business hotel," Melissa muttered while hanging monochrome wallpaper and installing hotel-like lighting. She carefully packed away the removed personal items and organized them in boxes at the back of each room's closet, accessible if needed, but out of daily sight. During these 2 weeks, Melissa had several phone conversations with her paternal Aunt Martha. Martha had long been concerned about Carol and Ashley's behavior. To be honest, John was worried too. "Before he died, about how Carol wasn't treating you well," Martha spoke quietly over the phone. "My brother always said Melissa is too kind. But sometimes setting boundaries is necessary. I'm sure John would support your decision. Martha's words resonated deeply with Melissa. The day of Carol and Ashley's return arrived. Melissa sat quietly on the living room sofa, waiting for their arrival. Around 3 p.m., she heard a taxi, followed by the front door opening. It was the best trip ever. We could see the Eiffel Tower from our Paris hotel and in Rome. Ashley's excited voice trailed off. They had noticed Melissa standing in the living room. Her mother and sister appeared even more luxurious than when they departed. Carol clutched a new designer bag, while Ashley wore the latest designer sunglasses. Their abundant shopping was evident from their luggage. "Welcome back," Melissa said in a calm voice. "How was your trip?" Carol set down her suitcase and held out a box. "It was wonderful. Look, I brought you some macarons from Paris." Melissa stared at the small box. For a moment, she felt her resolve waver at this tiny gesture of thoughtfulness, but she quickly steeled herself. She had always been placated by such small a presence and forgiven everything. But that era was over. "Thank you. Now, why don't you go upstairs?" Melissa gestured toward the stairs in a gentle voice. Carol and Ashley exchanged confused looks as they climbed the stairs and opened their respective doors. Simultaneous cries of surprise echoed through the house. "My room!" Ashley shrieked. "What is this? What happened? Where are my photos? My posters?" Carol was equally distressed. "Melissa, what is this? My room looks like this too." The two rushed back downstairs. Melissa faced them calmly. As she stood up, there was no longer any hesitation in her expression. "I finally understand how you both see me," Melissa said quietly. "I'm just an ATM to you, aren't I? Just someone to provide money?" "What are you talking about?" Carol looked shocked. "That's not true." Melissa took out her smartphone and displayed screenshots of text messages between Ashley and Carol. Conversations from their trip. Messages demanding additional expenses, words dismissing Melissa's existence. And one decisive line. "Melissa's just an ATM, so she won't complain anyway." "That's the conversation you two had." Ashley sent it, and Mom, you replied with a smiley face emoji. Ashley's face turned pale. "That was just a joke. We didn't mean." "Enough," Melissa raised her hand to stop her. "Let's talk about grandfather's inheritance. He named me as the administrator. And he gave me the authority to redistribute the inheritance of anyone who damages family bonds." Carol's eyes widened in fear. The blood draining from her face was visible beneath her makeup. What did you do?" "Based on grandfather's will, I've initiated procedures to donate half of your direct inheritance to a local charity. The remaining half will be placed in an escrow account and dispersed gradually as living expenses." Melissa continued her explanation calmly. "And from today, if you want to continue living in this house, you'll need to pay rent. I've set it at half the market rate. This hotel isn't free anymore." "How could you do this?" Carol cried out. "That's our money. Legally, it's within my authority under grandfather's will," Melissa replied coolly. "And I believe this is the right thing to do as my own judgment." Carol and Ashley stood dumbfounded. They seemed at a loss for words at this sudden development. Melissa placed an envelope on the coffee table. "These are the rental agreement and my new contact information. I'm moving out this weekend. If you seriously want to repair our relationship, sign this agreement and promise to participate in family counseling. Those are my conditions." "How can this?" Ashley began crying, her makeup running. "How are we supposed to live?" "Do what I've been doing all along. Work, Melissa said firmly. Ashley, it's time to take responsibility for your own life. Carol stared at Melissa with a mixture of anger and fear. I never thought you'd be this kind of daughter. We're family. Yes, we are family, Melissa took a deep breath. That's exactly why I've been taken advantage of all this time. But that era is over. Family means loving and respecting each other. It's not a one-sided relationship where one person just keeps giving. Melissa headed toward the front door. Looking back, she saw her mother and sister standing there, dumbfounded. They no longer appeared as intimidating as they once had. By the way, I've organized all your belongings in boxes in the closets. Call if you need anything. Melissa got into her car. Looking at the house reflected in her rearview mirror, she let out a deep sigh. She felt a sense of liberation she had never experienced before, along with excitement for her new life ahead. 1 year later, Melissa's Harmony Interiors continued to grow as one of Chicago's leading interior design firms. Featured in Architectural Digest as a designer to watch this year, she was receiving numerous requests from celebrities. Lake Michigan, viewed from her high-rise condominium in Gold Coast, sparkled in the morning sun. Melissa stood by the window, drinking coffee while watching the start of a new day. The white-themed living room was harmoniously furnished with pieces she had carefully selected. Her father's photo was displayed in the most well-lit spot. She had begun hosting dinner parties for friends on holidays and started attending yoga classes. She was enjoying the luxury of using her non-work hours for herself, something she could never have imagined before. One day, a letter arrived at her office. Seeing the familiar handwriting on the envelope, Melissa hesitated for a moment. The sender was Carol Hamilton. For the past year, she had maintained only minimal contact with her mother. Taking a deep breath, Melissa opened the envelope. Dear Melissa. The letter was written in careful handwriting. Over this past year, I've thought about many things and reflected on my actions. Every day has been filled with regret and remorse. What I did to you is unforgivable. I ignored your feelings and took your kindness for granted. Since starting to pay rent, I've finally understood how difficult life can be. Ashley has also started a part-time job. We are changing, slowly but surely. Now, I want to offer you my heartfelt apology. And if possible, I would like to participate in family counseling. I know it will take time. But I want to repair my relationship with you. That is my sincere wish. With love, Mom. Melissa read the letter several times. Her mother's words carried a sincerity she had never felt before. After thinking for a while, she picked up the phone and dialed a number. Dr. Watson's office. This is Melissa Hamilton. Could I make an appointment for counseling? 2 weeks later, Melissa nervously entered the counseling office. Dr. Watson, a counselor in her 50s, maintained an office with a warm, calming atmosphere. There, she faced her mother for the first time in a while. Carol looked older than before. Her makeup was more subdued, and her clothing more modest. The two sat down quietly facing each other. During the first session, Carol spoke through tears. I was jealous of Melissa's success. It was painful to see her achieving the dreams I had given up on when I was young. And by controlling her, I felt like I had power. I was wrong. It took time for Melissa to lower her guard, but she gradually opened her heart to her mother's changes. In subsequent sessions, Ashley also began participating. At first, she was dissatisfied and uncooperative, but under the counselor's guidance, she slowly began confronting her own issues. The flashy selfies disappeared from her social media accounts, replaced by honest posts about work and daily life. I've always chosen the easy path, Ashley admitted during one session. I thought Big Sister would provide everything, and Mom enabled my dependency. I never knew the value of making my own efforts. Dr. Watson carefully observed the relationship between the three women and provided appropriate advice. This isn't an issue that can be resolved in a day. It takes time to rebuild trust. But I can say with certainty that you're all moving in the right direction. As the counseling sessions continued, the relationship between the three women gradually changed. Carol began volunteering at the local community center, and Ashley started attending evening business school. One evening, Melissa invited her mother and sister to her home. While watching the sunset over Lake Michigan, the three shared a quiet meal together. Though the conversation wasn't as lively as before, each word carried more sincerity. Over dessert, Carol spoke quietly. "Melissa, your decision was right. Thank you for changing us." Ashley nodded. "Sis, I'm truly sorry. But I think I can be a different sister from now on." Melissa looked at them both. It would still take time to fully restore trust. But this was a new beginning. One step at a time, Melissa smiled. Her father's photo sat on the table. In the twilight glow, he seemed to be smiling gently in the photograph,